it just didn't work out that way. But anyway, so I want to start with you, my mama. This is Kadeen Pirkle. We're at her house. She's here by protest. She does not want to be on camera by any means whatsoever. Right. But I told her it wouldn't hurt too bad. Now, when did you first start going to Chestatee? What's your first remembrance?
When I first started going to Chestatee is when I started dating your daddy.
Yeah.
And he was going to a church in South County. That's where he's a member, but he didn't go there much.
Right.
And he liked to go to Chestatee. So we...
and that was New Hope Methodist Church.
Yes.
In South County.
In South County.
Over on 306.
Mm-hmm. But we started going to Chestatee, and it was just so informal and seemed like you felt at ease. And if you wanted to talk, okay. If you didn't, okay. But
now, was that different from what you had down at?
It was
same or?
Well, it was basically the same, but in a way, I thought it was a little better.
And you remember at
Belmont Baptist
Belmont,
Church.
okay. So when you went to Chestatee, you felt at home.
Yes.
But in some ways, you felt a little bit freer than you did at Belmont.
Yes, I did. But I was away a long time at work,
right.
And I was away from Belmont, so that made a difference.
Now, you talking about being away from work, a lot of people don't have no clue about this. Momma was a world traveler, what I call her. She worked at
Riverside Military Academy.
And you were the secretary of the top dog.
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Beaver.
General Beaver.
General Beaver.
Well, now I was not top secretary to him.
Yeah.
There was another lady, but I was second in line.
But he was top dog.
Yes, and I was secretary to the registrar, Colonel James Mooney.
Yeah.
And he helped me a lot. He was real good.
But we brought all this up because you said you was gone from home a lot before you got married. Because you worked there, and then you also...
Well, they went to Florida
Hollywood, Florida every winter.
Hollywood, Florida every winter.
And so for everybody at Chestatee that thinks my mama loaded up on a bus with a bunch of boys and room at Hollywood, Florida, no, that ain't no way. Well, it happened.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't the only girl.
Yeah, I know that. But it's just always a neat story. And then when you was up here in Gainesville and lived at Belmont, you also went to Perry Business School.
I did.
Before you went to Riverside.
Yes.
Then you roomed with people there. Even though Belmont and Gainesville was not that far away now, then that was a long haul.
Oh, yes.
And only had one vehicle at home, so you roomed with people, went to school there, and then you roomed at Riverside. I think you boarded there.
I boarded I lived upstairs over the hospital, the infirmary they call it then.
Yeah.
And just walked a block or so to the office.
Right. So anyway, getting back to the church part, that's why I just want to clear up why I said you was gone from home for a long time, didn't get to go to Belmont that much.
That's right.
But so anyway, Chestatee was very old-fashioned and felt freer then. Now, when you and Daddy got married, what year?
1955.
1955. Now, about when did y'all start dating?
1953.
53. So, 1953, Jack Pierce was pastor then. He pastored the first time from 1952 to 1959. So, I guess Jack was pastor then. And I know you talked about going to revivals there, but you couldn't remember who helped revival.
Well, I couldn't. I didn't know the people.
Right, because that still in Hall County, but still traveling wasn't as easy.
No, we didn't travel as much.
So those around here stayed around here, and well, it's sort of that way now. But the visitors, the preachers didn't visit like they do.
No.
They stayed in the local church, very local churches. Well, what people do you remember when you first went to Chesapeake? You know, some of the old ones that's gone on now.
Well, I guess basically I remember Hammond and Nadine.
Yeah.
And let's see.
Hammond always on the front bench.
Always on that front bench.
Yeah.
And it never looked the same without him.
Yeah.
Somehow. I mean, I know Dwayne, he sits up there sometimes now, but it just don't look right.
Right. Another that I always remember is Mr. Otis Walter.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. and Miss Walter.
Yes. They were fine people.
Yeah.
He liked to tease and go on at him, but he's shy like.
Yeah.
He's sort of shy.
Yeah, that's what I remember about him too.
Mm-hmm.
But I was if the back then the parking lot wasn't paved, it was just river rock.
That's right.
And if you come in sometime and some kids in the community have been there cutting up and cut circles and donuts in the yard and
Mm-hmm.
the rocks is messed up, first thing we'll do is say, Mr. Otis, you've been over here cutting circles again. He just grin.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fine man.
Then you have Mr. and Mrs. Will Martin. Will and Maddie Martin.
Yeah, I never did really get as close to them as I did some, but they were fine people.
Yeah.
Real fine.
Yeah.
That was Harold Martin's daddy.
Right. Now, Mildred Martin's mom and daddy, Utah and Aunt Oler.
I always regretted that I never did get to be with them. See, they had left Chesapeake when I started going, but I heard a lot about it, and I always wish that I could have been there when they were there.
When the lake came in, that made them have to move.
They moved.
And then when they moved,
they started
going to Corinth.
That's right.
And it just
changed things.
Changed things for them and for Chesapeake.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were
But I heard a lot about it, and
all good things.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
I think they took a real active part in Chesapeake.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah. Another that comes to my mind is Miss Bessie Martin.
Oh yeah. Mr. Luke's wife.
Right. And that was Wade's and Clay's mother.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And Rowena.
She was a fine lady, and she was always getting up and talking.
Yeah.
But you had to be real still and real quiet to understand anything she said, hardly, because she talked real low.
Yeah.
But she was a fine person, and a very likable person.
Yeah. And what I remember, she always sat up on the front bench on the opposite side of Hammond.
Yes.
Or where the preacher's are at now.
Yes.
She always sit right there in that corner.
That's right, she did.
And I remember as a kid.
I didn't think you'd remember.
Yeah.
That.
And I remember as a kid when she would stand up, like you said, you had to get real quiet, and the church would get real quiet.
Yeah.
And she just talked as a little whisper.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go, woo, woo.
Yeah, she'd get happy and.
Then you know she was really feeling good.
Yeah, she's feeling good.
And you could feel that all over the church there. But at first you strained to hear what she said, and you couldn't necessarily hear what she said. But then
That's
you heard
right.
it, woo, woo.
But you know, you knew it was good.
Yeah.
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 She was a very sweet person.
Now, when y'all first started going there as dating, it's the same church building then, but then that choir part shouldn't have been on there then, was it? Do you remember?
Let's see, how was that choir? Let's see. It seemed like part of the time was sitting on the right side of the.
Like where the small benches are at now, my understanding is those benches faced each other. And the wall come right across there where the amen corner start now. The wall come, and they had a bow window where the preachers would stay. Can you sort of remember that?
Well, barely.
Yeah.
Because I usually sat back in the church.
Right. And you was just visiting, you know, but my understanding is sometime during that Jack's first term he left for a series of revivals, and while he was gone, the men opened up that wall on the end and built that choir section in Sunday school rooms, the Amen corners. When he come back after 4 weeks, I believe it was, because I think then they might have just been meeting one Sunday a month, but I'm not sure. Anyway, there it was. I don't know how if it was 100%
Well, it seemed
complete.
like it was 2 Sundays a month, second and fourth.
Well, it used to be 2 Sundays, but for a while there's
It's just one.
even farther back it was 1 Sunday a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's right.
And you used to have to didn't have inside restrooms.
That's right.
The women, they had a little outhouse, which would be about where the end of the fellowship hall's at now. That was more wooded then, and there was an outhouse there. Then the men, all they had was a grove of trees. They didn't have the luxury of an outhouse. But that was down on what would be the core property now, towards the front of the church. You remember anybody else in particular?
Well, I can't think of anybody right now.
Clay and Annie Martin. I was assuming they were active at that time.
They were active. Annie, she didn't take too much part in a lot of things,
Yeah.
but she was there all the time.
Yeah. Because I know back in that time was back when Cecil Martin was very active
Yeah.
with the young people at church.
He was real good with them.
Yeah. Cecil's a fine man. He's another one I hope to sit down with like this.
Yeah.
And hear some stories.
Yeah. He can tell you a whole lot.
Yeah.
Whole lot.
I'm trying to think of different ones, but mine slips me right now. Well, if I ain't gonna put no pressure on it, but if you feel impressed, would you give me a testimony?
Oh yes. I was saved when I was 13 years old. Went to church one Sunday, and everything was all right. And about the time I got home, the Lord started dealing with me, and I had an awful week. It was awful. And went back to church in the next Sunday, and Mama knew about this. I mean, my mama, I had a good mama, and at that time her mind was good. You don't remember when her mind was so good. But her mind was good back then, and she saw that we went to Sunday school and church. But it was some good times.
But what was it? I think you got saved before church started.
When we went to church that morning, I was just in awful shape. And so they started singing the first song. And I couldn't take it any longer. I started to the altar. And I was sitting up in the choir anyway. And I started the altar. And about the time that I got down in the altar, that's when the Lord saved my soul. And it was good. I forgot a lot of things through the years, but I've not forgot that.
Yeah.
I've not forgot that. It was so good.
That was down there at Belmont.
Mm.
Now your parents were Cater Martin and Sally White Martin.
That's right. My mother's daddy was an old-time Baptist preacher,
Will Martin.
Will White.
Yeah, Will White. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was good.
Yeah.
I remember after I was saved, he said the Sunday before we was at their house, and he sort of wanted to talk to me, but the Lord wouldn't let him. And so it worked out right, because he said if he had talked to me, it might have kept me from going when I did.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it was good. I can't remember. It seemed like there was 6 of us baptized. I believe when I was baptized, I believe it was 6.
Yeah.
But,
Where was you baptized at down there at Belmont?
well, it was in a person's house in a little pond.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think they have some kind of a pool at the church. I believe now. I don't know for sure. I don't know about Belmont anymore.
Yeah. Now you're talking about your grandpa, Will White. Back then, that's before the lake came in.
Mm-hmm.
They lived in the Sardis community, which would be if you're on Dawsonville Highway, on the bridge, headed west towards Sardis. If you look north, and then up into that fork,
Up in that curve, like
that curve,
that's where
many of the houses were at in the community. And
that's where my grandpa lived, and where my grandpa's brother lived, and just lots of kinfolks.
And you had Martin kinfolks live in that area too.
Yeah.
Your grandpa Martin
Yeah.
also lived in that area.
Well, he had already passed away.
Yeah. But the home place was
But
there.
my grandmother was still alive.
Yeah.
She lived to be, I don't know, she lived several years after he died.
Yeah. That was a very close-knit community back in there before the lake came in, which brought in a lot of outsiders from Atlanta. But well, anything else you want to add to this?
Well, I don't know of anything in particular. Should be able to, but
Hell, I didn't write down with a set of questions for you, nothing like that. Try to make it as informal as I could. But this didn't hurt too bad, did it?
no.
Nah. All right, well, I appreciate you sharing with me.